Welcome back to episode 30. We made it to 30 episodes of the Punching Down podcast. What a wild ride it has been, huh? I started this podcast. COVID was just a glimmer in the eye of some guy eating a bat in China. And then it hit, and then I was in Florida, and now I'm in New York, and the president has it, and it is just too much going on. I don't even know where to start. See, here's the thing. If this was an normal week, and when I say that, I mean, like, if this was a normal week where just, like, you know, an insane amount of shit happened, but not like a fucking crazy amount of stuff happened, I would be talking about the debates, because the debates were last weekend. I'm sorry, not last weekend, last Tuesday night. This podcast comes out on Tuesday afternoon. So I was basically missing. I got to do this thing fucking every day, basically. In order for your like shit to just like not get stale, it's like you got to basically do a podcast. You know what? You just have a new podcast coming out every hour at this point. That's the only way to really stay on top of shit. So I was going to talk about, obviously, the debates. And I guess I'll talk about them briefly because they kind of mattered, I suppose. But so basically, I don't know, my thoughts on the debates were Trump came off as just a bit unhinged. And I mean, the only really thing he did, and like I heard this, I read this elsewhere, and it kind of made a good point. But it's like Biden's whole thing is just saying crazy shit. So all Trump really had to do was just not talk and let him say the crazy stuff that you almost know he's going to say. And then all Trump could do was just talk over him nonstop and interrupt him. It was a mess. That fucking debate was it was a mess. Like I was watching this and it was like a car wreck, you know, you can't not look away. But it was, I don't know. I don't know who came. I have to think Biden came out on top of that overall just because Trump just came off as like such a fucking dick. But then Trump goes and he just turns the table. Everybody's talking about his taxes. Remember his taxes? That was like, I don't know, a week and a bit ago. That was literally the whole tax thing was like, I don't know, 9 days ago. That was like when that came out. Seems like a lifetime ago. But so Trump just turns the tables on everybody and he goes and he fucks around and he gets COVID. Look at that, huh? The president of, and the thing too is everybody's like, this is so unprecedented or whatever. But I'm like, I'm pretty sure, well, I guess Trump or Trudeau didn't have COVID. Because I remember Trudeau, his wife got it. And then I don't know if he got it because I don't even know if there was like really good testing at the time. Because this was like kind of pretty early on in COVID. But because I remember Trudeau had to self-isolate. He was self-isolating for 2 weeks. And then Boris Johnson obviously got it. And people are like, He's never been the same. So it will be interesting to see what happened. But so anyway, Trump goes, he gets COVID, which is so interesting too, that because then he gets COVID and at first he's like, I'm just getting tested. I was texting with my friend too because like I run this website, the Hard Money website, and so we were like thinking of some ideas for it. And I was like, because you know he's still the president. Like I was like, he's like, oh, we got to wait for our tests to come back. And you're like, you don't have like a 15-minute test. You're the fucking president of the United States. You're the most powerful man on the planet. You should have a test available to you. But so he's talking about how he's like, yo, yeah, we're waiting for the test to come back. And at that point, I'm like, you know what? He doesn't have it. He's just going to milk this. And then, you know, he definitely made me eat my words on that one because he had it. Him and Melania have it and a bunch of other people who are in the White House have it. And then it got crazy. People are like, oh my God, the fucking president has COVID. What's going to happen? He's, you know, and it was a lot of things. So people are like, he's a 74-year-old obese man. And so then they're like, and then they go and they find the table, you know, they're like, they find the table of what will happen to a 74-year-old obese man. And they're like, he has a 2.5% chance of dying or something like that. Which it's funny because nobody ever factors in. You're like, yeah, that's some guy who's getting regular health care. He's not the president of the United States of America. Like Trump has become such a like, he's so unpresidential that people don't even give him credit for the fact they're like, you know, maybe they're going to treat him like he's the president though. Like even if you hate his guts and he's a piece of shit or whatever, you're like, he still might get treated like, I mean, it's not even might, like the fact that like, yes, they're going to treat him like the president because you can't have the president dying. And then it was just, all the stuff was so funny. Like, so anyways, he gets sick, and then, or he's not just sick or whatever, but he's, he has COVID, test positive. And then they're like, oh, we gave him some like, Regeneron treatment thing. And then all these people are like, why is Trump getting this treatment when regular people aren't getting it? Like, it's experimental or blah, blah, blah. And you're like, yeah, because he's the president. He's more important than a regular person. So yes, they are maybe going to pull out all the stops and trying to make sure that the president doesn't die of fucking COVID. So they gave him that. And then they're like, oh, on Friday afternoon, they're transporting him to Walter Reed Medical Center or whatever. And that's when everybody's like, oh, shit's going down. Shit is going down. The president is going to Walter Reed, where he's certainly, everybody's like, I mean, I'd say half of my Twitter was like, I'd say it's interesting because like, I don't know if it's half my Twitter wants him to die, but it's a good chunk. A lot of people on my Twitter definitely wishing death on the president of the United States of America. But so, and then he gets transferred over to Walter Reed or whatever. He's in the hospital, and then the best part is they showed, because people are like, well, how's he gonna govern from the hospital? And you're like, well, I mean, I think he'll be fine. I don't think he literally needs to be in the White House. He's he's traveling all over the world. He's playing golf all the time. I think he'll figure it out. And then they started, this is the best. I saw this. I laughed so hard at this. So someone on Twitter posted this. This guy, Richard Southern. I don't know who he is. Probably a journalist or something. Goes, U.S. President Trump isn't staying in any old hospital room. Walter Reed Hospital has a 6-room presidential suite just for the commander-in-chief that includes an intensive care unit, a kitchen, a living room, a bedroom, and a dining room with a crystal chandelier. And then obviously people are like, so angry about this. And you're like, what do you expect the president to have? You imagine they're like, yeah, the president's just like, in a regular room at Mount Sinai Hospital. He doesn't have it. Like, obviously the president of the United States is going to have, and people act like you're like, this is set up for Trump. You're like, no, this is just the room that is empty all the time that is there in the event that the president of the United States needs to use it. But it's like, the amount of people who are like, yeah, and I can't believe that, my grandmother died in a hallway and was loaded in a freezer truck, but the president gets treated like this. And you're like, yes, like, it's so crazy. I don't know if I'm just because like Trump has changed everybody's mind on like what the president is, or maybe because like I'm from Canada. I don't know what it is, but like I do remember most of my life where the president was kind of a big deal, and they really like, they did a lot to make sure that the president didn't die and kind of, lived like in a lifestyle that was above a regular person. But like all the people, he's like, oh my God, he has a living room, must be nice, doesn't pay any taxes. And you're like, yeah, the president who doesn't pay any taxes, the guy who doesn't pay any taxes is not the guy who's currently they're trying to not have die. Like you almost have to kind of, disassociate the two from one another, because like as much as they are obviously the same person, you're like, yeah, that was a private citizen who didn't pay taxes. And then this guy is just like the president, who it's like, you just can't have the president dying unless you hate him. I mean, there's a lot of people who are like, what do you mean you can't have the president dying? I literally want the president to die. That's all I want. A lot of people are like, I'll have no Christmas this year. I'll just take that as my Christmas present if just the president can die. It's funny too, all the amount of people. So, the amount of people who, they wanted him to die. But so conspiracy, there's a lot of like the amount of people who are like, this is fake. Like they're like, this is a lie. It's so crazy too, because like the media and the president have been lying so consistently, both of them, that it's impossible to know what's real anymore. Like you have no idea. Like you're like, I don't know what is real, what is not real. It's really hard to find out. So, but there were like remember when conspiracy theories were pretty much like a right-wing thing? That was like my whole life. That's pretty recently. Like it took Trump to basically get left-wing people on board with conspiracy theories, because they were never conspiracy theory people at all. That was always a right-wing thing. Right-wing people were that was the domain of the right wing was conspiracy theories. And then now Trump gets sick and all these people are like, it's a hoax, like it's a lie or whatever. He's not actually sick. He's just using this because then he doesn't have to do another debate. Like there's so many different versions of this. They were like, well, he won't have to debate. We're not talking about his taxes anymore. I like there were a million different things. And then people are like, but the thing is like, again, and this is what everybody said about like the moon landing, where you're like, okay, well, say this is because I know personally people who I spoke with who are like, yeah, he doesn't actually have it. It's all a lie. But you're like, you know how fucked he would be if it came out that he actually didn't have COVID and he was just lying about this to like gain sympathy and political points. Like that would officially be the end of it. Like he's not even that dumb. Like even he would know where you go, if you do this, that's it. You are done. That is it forever for Trump. You're like, if it comes out that you're like, you didn't even have COVID and you lied about it, like that would be over for him. Game over. But so it is interesting the amount of people who are just like, yeah, he doesn't have it. No way. I bet he's just doing this for whatever reason to just get out of whatever. And then today, it's Monday right now. And then there was talk about, and so that's another thing too. So they're giving him all these like different treatments or whatever. And he's basically being like, I feel great. He basically tweeted a thing earlier, essentially being like, he's like, I feel better than I have in the past 20 years. He's like, essentially being like, yo, COVID's not a big deal. Anybody who dies of COVID is a pussy bitch. He didn't say that explicitly, but you know he means it. And then, and you know, too, he's going to be like, because he's so like mental, like he's not going to like people are like, oh, this is going to be, what is that fucking like, and not It's a Wonderful Life, but the Christmassy movie where the guy dies or whatever, or fuck, this is escaping me. I apologize. This is the Jew in me. Charles Dickens, something like that, and then this is not good. But anyways, you know what I'm talking about. Like people are like, he's going to be a new man. He's going to have this near-death experience. He's going to be a totally new guy. And then you just cut to the next debate, which is probably going to be over Zoom. And it's literally going to Trump being like, well, Biden, if he got it, he would have died for sure. He's like, I'm just like, he's not going to change at all. Everybody's hoping that this is going to be like the opportunity for him to just have this like about face and just become a different guy now. And you're like, no, it's not happening. He is the same guy. He's going to literally talk shit about Biden. He's going to be like, Biden didn't get it. He's going to be like, I'm a war hero. I got COVID. And then the White House gift shop, they're selling these like Trump, like beat COVID coins, commemorative coins. The whole thing is just bizarre too. And then there was another thing too on CNN. They were shitting on Trump for, so then I guess all these people were like camping out because they're like wanting the president to get better. And then CNN's like, and so then Trump went for a car ride. Like he basically went for a ride just to like wave to people. And there was these Secret Service people in the car. And they're like, how irresponsible of Donald Trump to endanger the lives of all these Secret Service agents, blah, blah, blah. And so then, and it's funny because I was like, I wonder, like, how did they actually feel about it? So I have a friend who is an actual Secret Service agent. He's currently in Washington, D.C. He works at the White House. He is an actual Secret Service agent. He's not a made-up friend. He's a real friend. I'm going to visit him in Washington, D.C. in a few weeks. Less than a few weeks. Basically like in 2 weeks, I'm going to visit him. It's his birthday. So I was asking him today. I was like, so what's the deal? Like, your people you work with who are like Secret Service agents, like what are their feelings on all this stuff about like, is he endangering them? And he's basically like, nah. He's like, nobody really cares. Like, first off, these are all guys who have like been in the military. They're not like pussies. And again, obviously, like getting a virus is not like, it's not like, oh, you're a fucking pussy. Like they just were like, most of them, a lot of them have had it. They all like take precautions, but they're not, and they wear masks or whatever. But none of them are at all worried about like getting it, and they're not like, oh my God, the president put me in danger. I mean, if you're a Secret Service agent, for Trump especially, you kind of have to feel like your life's in danger all the time. He's the most hated man on the planet. Like, you think that the COVID is the thing that's like putting you in danger? You're like, what about the fact that, so many people want him fucking dead? Like, Twitter literally had to put out a thing maybe like a few days ago basically being like, yeah, we're going to suspend your account if you wish him death. That's like a line for us. Even though you're like, impossible. Good luck enforcing that. Like, bye to 5% of all the tweets on Twitter. Like literally no chance of enforcing that at all. But they had to go, and they had to be like, yeah, if you wish death on the president of the United States, we're gonna have to suspend your account. And it is funny too, because then all these people were like, yeah, people wish me death all the time, and Twitter's like, yeah, but you're not the president, so we're gonna allow it. But again, there's no way Twitter can, like, unless you have someone reading every tweet, like, how could you possibly manage that? It's an unmanageable thing. But it was interesting to hear the take from my friend who is a Secret Service agent, who's basically like, yeah, he's like, I wouldn't believe it. I mean, again, it's like, that's just the CNN's angle. It's so interesting, you watch CNN and they're all like, he's the worst, and you watch Fox and they're like, get well soon, president, and they just are, they're doing their thing. You got to respect. Well, you don't have to respect them. You just have to understand that they are just, doing a specific thing. And yeah, so anyways, it is interesting though with the conspiracy angle that that's because the left wing conspiracies. I never thought I would see that in my life, but they had the Russia collusion thing, which is definitely a conspiracy. Remember that? That was like going on in the Mueller report, and everybody's like, they're like, he's so done, and that just like came out, and you're like, okay, yeah, there's nothing there, and they go, okay, just on to the next thing. I wonder too if he wins. I can't see him having a great. I think his odds of winning have gone down. He's definitely an underdog now in the upcoming election. I don't know if he's gonna be able to spin this COVID thing into his advantage, but he is definitely an underdog right now. It's funny too with the because when he got sick, and then everybody was using this to like dunk on him, where he was like shitting on Biden for the masks, and like, he's like, oh, and he called it a hoax or whatever. People are like, yeah, remember when you called it a hoax? And then Snopes had to come out with Snopes is like the pretty like left leaning like fact checker thing, where they're basically like, they're the ones who basically fact check, and a lot of times it's wrong. So I don't even know if I should be, but anyways, they had to come out and they did a thing on, they kept posting this being like, did President Trump refer to coronavirus as a hoax? This is from March 2nd, but they've been like kind of posting this because everybody's been like, remember when you called it a hoax? It's not a hoax now. You got sick with it. And then basically they go, they say it's a mixture, but he basically said he didn't refer to it as, he did not call Trump did not call the coronavirus itself a hoax. He basically called like the Democrats' criticism of his administration, saying this is their new hoax, as in, this is their new Russiagate or whatever. But so then they had to basically start like posting this because people kept being like, it's a hoax. And then, oh man, there's nothing that people like less who are trying to dunk on him than their boy Snopes showing up, shutting it down. But yeah, so I had no chance of not talking about Trump this week. Like, imagine I just did one episode and I was like, yeah, I don't know. Sports are back. New York's weird. New York is weird. No, New York's fine. Although they're starting to shut shit down again here. It's weird. There's 9. The Jews are at it again. That's the only thing I can say about that. Is there's 9 zip codes in New York that they're now, and there's a big beef going on. There's a big like rap style beef going on between Cuomo and de Blasio in New York. It's interesting to see because basically de Blasio's like, we're shutting everything down in these 9 districts, like 9 zip codes or whatever. And then he's like, all non-essential, all restaurants, everything, which is like, just restaurants here cannot handle this happening again. And then he's just like, no, we're not doing that. Like, Cuomo's basically like, I haven't given the go ahead on that. But then Cuomo is actually going after it. He basically posted something because all these, and the thing is, it's funny because he posted this thing about all these Orthodox Jews and how they're not social distancing. And then he took all this heat, and this is actually today that he posted, and he took all this heat for it because he didn't have like the photos he used were like old, and someone was like, look, you could just like, if you just kind of go look at this photo and you reverse Google search, image search it or whatever, you'll see that it is a total, like the photo is not current. But you're like, yeah, maybe the photo is not current, but I can assure you that the fucking Orthodox Jews are not, like, it's for sure a problem. Like, there's so many documented cases of it where they're like, they have these like massive like funeral processions, and they're like just shoulder to shoulder. And again, I get it. New York is like, doesn't have a ton of space, and I'm sure the Jews are not only to blame. They're just to blame for everything else in the world. But anyways, yeah, some shit's going down. They're like, so They just reopened stuff indoors here, and then it looks like that's not gonna last very long. Who knows? Only one thing I can say is none of these zip codes are in Manhattan. They're all pretty far away. Some of them are they're all in the Bronx or Brooklyn, but I really hope they don't shut shit down again. It'll not be good. I actually did see something too interesting so basically I remember thinking having to stop pre-COVID for sure, where I was like, waiters at restaurants are starting to become obsolete. I've been thinking that for a few years now. I'm not gonna lie. There's been a few years now. My ex-girlfriend, she worked in a restaurant, and I just remember thinking and I don't know if it's I'm not the norm, because I don't have a lot of questions. I'm not the type of person who I go to the restaurant and I have a million questions. But at the same time, I'm I don't need to necessarily, you can make it easy for me to answer my questions without talking to a person. And so now it's kind of like a hybrid a bit, right? So now it's like a hybrid where, because now a lot of restaurants don't have menus. So you go there and they go, here's a QR code, you scan the QR code, and now you have a thing with a menu on it. But I feel, and then someone comes and they go, what do you want? And they take your order. But this is starting to feel pretty obsolete to me. This whole system of you don't really need it, because I don't understand why I can't just go to a restaurant, open up, and I know people are like, well, I like the old way, I like the whatever, I like some human interaction, touch, blah blah blah, whatever. I understand that, okay, but I don't get why you can't just go to a restaurant and then you get the QR code, and that instead of opening up the menu, that opens up just basically a version of Uber Eats, and then you just order. You're okay. And then if you have questions, I'm sure it can't be that difficult to just get answers to these questions inside of an app. Now, I guess some people are I don't want to use my phone. There's old people. I get it. It's not going to be it's not something that's happening tomorrow. I do understand that. But I do feel this is going to be kind of a bit of, and because I saw something Square, the company Square, they're the payment processor or whatever, they're owned by Jack Dorsey, or he started it or whatever, the guy from Twitter, who's doing a bang-up job over on Twitter. But he basically they announced something last week where they're basically yeah, we're going to make the ordering process at restaurants with less people, because and essentially he's basically did what I'm saying, but more with a little an iPad at the table versus doing it on your phone yourself. And now I saw a thing tonight, earlier today. There was they're watch out, robot waiters are coming to restaurants, and I'm is this just is this the beginning of the end for waiters? I know it won't be the end for bartenders, because I feel bartenders I don't think a robot could do that. Plus, although I was thinking, I'm because there's this whole issue where you're bartenders are they overserve people, which is, granted, this is the business model of a ton of fucking restaurants and bars is people are oh, I can't believe they overserve them. And you're yeah, they'd be out of business if they didn't overserve people. But wouldn't it be interesting if there was some sort of robot bartender, and then in order to order drinks, you have to pass some sort of mathematical challenge, how they make you do those skill testing questions when you win a thing of French fries or whatever. I don't know if they do that in America, but they do it in Canada. I think they do that here, the skill testing question. And just so it's not gambling. I think that's the loophole around gambling, is you just have to answer what's 2 + 7. And then but imagine that's a robot bartender, and then if you just get too smashed and you're oh fuck, I'm too drunk, I can't answer this, and you go, oh, well, you can't order. Seems like a good system to. Or you could just, and I was going to say you can maybe start breathalyzing people, but you're not going to want to start breathalyzing people and then they're sharing the thing. But they could do that, where it's if you're just too wasted, then it'll be too hard for you to order, and then boom, you don't get any orders. But I do really think that waiters are can become fairly obsolete. Not at nice fine dining. That'll never really fine dining. That'll never be completely removed. But I could easily see it. I go to so many sushi restaurants where you show up to a sushi restaurant and they're here's a piece of paper and a pencil, and they're just write down your order. So it's they're already cutting out one step of their job. It's interesting to think, because you're there's so many people, especially in New York, who are that's what they do. They're that's their job. I mean, not even New York, just the fucking world. Like, food service is like, I almost am seeing this as like, this seems to be like almost equally as bad as like, the fact that there's going to be no self-driving cars are going to take away like Uber drivers and taxi drivers and stuff. There's just going to be this whole class of people that are just going to be replaced by like an app and a robot. It's not looking good for them. Not looking good for them indeed. Will there be universal basic income? I don't know. Maybe if Joe Biden gets elected, there might be. A lot of people think that that's what's going to be happening in my native country of Canada, that there's going to be a universal basic income, which I don't know if I could see that happening, but it is crazy. Like, they just basically, they just gave everybody so much money. Like, there's a lot. I don't know the exact scenario. I mean, I'm sure in America they gave them a shit ton more money, but there was just a lot of money printed out of fucking thin air that was just given to people in Canada for, I mean, again, because the country would have crumbled had it not. But yeah, and I mean, that's the thing too. Everybody's like, well, they handled COVID so well, but they're starting to have rolling shutdowns again in Canada. Let's just hope this isn't the norm. I'm going to have to go back to fucking Florida where everything's just reopened and they don't give a fuck. Good for Florida too, huh? They're just saying straight up, we do not give a shit. That is basically Florida's full MO right now. Is go, look, you know what? It's unfortunate that all this stuff's happened, but we really could not give a fuck about any of this. We're not closing anything down. And come to Florida. Enjoy it. Same with Texas. Like, Florida straight up got rid of their mask bans. All that shit. It's an interesting time for that. All right. We have one last thing that I want to get to. It's going to be a short episode this week because I'm like, it seems weird for me to like get into, first off, there were like, the news cycle was just Trump dominated. Like, it's just like, everything I read was just like basically all about him. And I'm like, I don't want to, I feel like I'm being forced to devote like an episode to this, like what are you supposed to do? Like, I don't want this to be a politics podcast, but I'm like, fuck, man, the president of the United States has COVID, especially this, but like if Obama had COVID, you'd be like, oh, that sucks. How did that happen? And then he gets it and everybody's like, yeah, that's fucking hilarious. That's pretty funny considering, like, he was at the debate last week. He goes, I'm not wearing a mask. He goes, he's like, I'll wear a mask when I need a mask. Joe Biden, he goes, he's got the biggest mask. That was the funniest line. He goes, he's always wearing the biggest mask. And he was like, this hugest mask. It was insane. And then he gets it like 3 days later. And it was all from this like event at the White House. And they're like, they basically did their contact tracing. And they're like, yeah, see, here's this photo. And all these people were shaking hands and hugging. And now they all have COVID. So we'll see if there's any deaths out of it. Because that's the thing, too. If he just beats it and he goes, look, it's not that big of a deal. It kind of makes you think, too, not to fucking keep going on this, but it kind of makes you think with that you're like, if he beats it, then you're like, I guess we're done. I guess the need for a vaccine's not necessary because he's having these synthetic, he basically used these synthetic antibodies that, granted, like they can't just give to everybody tomorrow, but they can, and apparently what happens with them is that they, in like 15% of people who take these synthetic antibodies, they cause an allergic reaction because they're not, like, I guess they're proteins. I'm not a science guy, so if I sound like an idiot, I apologize. But basically, they're synthetic, so then when you go in your body like rejects them, like it's because it basically has like an allergic reaction because it's rejecting them because it's like this foreign thing. But that's not in everybody. It's only in a small percentage of people. And eventually, apparently, like for him to take that stuff too, probably fucked him up pretty bad because they give you like a ton of Benadryl and like all this shit, which is why he probably wasn't tweeting because he was just like out of commission. But I mean, like, you got to figure, like, if he beats this, then we're like, okay, like it just almost took him getting it to be like, okay, well, if the most powerful man in the world gets it and he's fine, then I guess we're fine. Like, I guess we're good on this. Like, it's obviously still not nothing, but it's definitely not something to be like super worried about anymore. Just figure out the thing that they gave him and then get it to as many people as you can or who need it. And then I guess that's it. Like, he's going to be fucking touting that too. He's going to be like, dude, I beat COVID. It wasn't shit. Let's hope. Well, I guess we'll see if he beat it or not. Apparently this is still dicey, but he does have the access to all the crazy best and brightest and all the crazy experimental drugs. Although I don't know if it's super experimental, but he does have access to it. So anyways, we're going to leave on this because this is just fucking insane. This is actually from today. So, this place, Pure Gym. This was on I don't even get this because this was from today, but it's about celebrating Black History Month. Unless this is a screenshot from like a long time ago. But I can't. But anyway, so it's from a gym it looks like in somewhere in England, Luton and Dunstable, sounds like England, and says, entitled, it's from a gym, entitled, The 12 Years of Slave, bracket after the epic movie. This is our workout of the month, designed by Matt Simp T to celebrate Black History Month. Black History Month in February, though. Slavery was hard, and so is this. So crazy. The twist to this is 1 rep of your first exercise, 2 of the second, but before you move on to the third exercise, which is also 3 reps, you must start at the beginning to move on and on winky face, and that's how the entire workout goes. This is so crazy. So this is the 12 years of slave workout. It's a 100-meter sprint, a power clean, deadlifts, pistol squats, burpees, floor wipers, push-ups, box jumps, kettlebell swings, rows, squats, and I think overhead press. Who thought this was a good idea? This, even if this was a black guy, which there's 0% chance this was not a black guy, because they are not that fucking stupid. Who could be this dumb to be like, we're doing a 12 years of a slave, like, workout of the day, like CrossFit workout? This is fucking mental. I could not believe. I was like, this is fake, right? This is, and then the company who like basically, the company who did it basically apologized. They're like, oh no, someone just did this and we apologize. We've deleted this. Basically, this is today too. We apologize unreservedly for this post, which has been removed. This was posted by the local gym, not approved or endorsed by the company, and is being investigated. Thank you for raising this with us. But also, isn't Black History Month in February? I don't even get, like, is this guy so off where he goes, yeah, I don't know, any month could be Black History Month. Why are you guys being racist? But imagine you were like, we're going to celebrate Black History Month with a workout entitled 12 Years of Slave. And it's about, because you know the slaves, it's very well documented. The slaves had to do a lot of power cleans, a lot of burpees. Slavery was basically mostly burpee based. A lot of box jumps, a lot of push-ups, overhead press, floor wipers. All right, I can't do this anymore. This is, what a fucking lunatic thing to do. All right, that has been episode 30. Thank you for everybody who's been listening to the podcast. We've been gaining listeners. It warms my heart. If you enjoy the podcast, leave a review. That would be great. I do appreciate you. And until next week, hopefully it's a lighter week. I can't handle the amount of shit that happened in the last 7 days happening again. So hopefully it does not. But if it does, know that I'll be here for you. All right. Take care. Bye.